The Thanksgiving long weekend is almost here. The highways out of town expected to be busy today, with many people hitting the roads on the way to visit family for the holiday weekend. Good afternoon. With turkey dinners in sight, many will be putting Toronto in the rearview mirror.
The mad dash out of town kicking off the long weekend today. CTV's John Musselman is at the King City en route and joins us live with the latest. John.
Hi, Natalie. Well, it's a very nice day, a lot of sunshine here. We do know a lot of people are heading north to cottage country. We'll show you some video this morning. This is shots from the 400 near the King City en route. Traffic was moving very well. It's been building a bit as we have been here throughout the morning. Now, we met a lot of people on this en route saying they're going up to Collingwood, they're going up to cottage country, some to close up the cottage, but many have all year round places now. So they're gathering as families to celebrate the Thanksgiving long weekend. We also met people that were going to do some canoeing, some going up to look at the fall colors in Algonquin Park. A whole variety of things people are doing this weekend. Here's what they had to tell us.
We really like the leaves up there. It's a good excuse to get everyone up, and we use it as a closing weekend too, so we bring everything in.
I think it's a good time to spend time with family. That's what we're all together, we're all busy with work during the week. So I think this is a good opportunity to stay together, have fun, spend time with your family, have a good dinner together. So that's what we're excited about.
My wife is mad at me because I'm going moose hunting for the Thanksgiving weekend.
Oh, we're spending Thanksgiving weekend. My sister is visiting from Singapore, and my mom has always wanted to see Algonquin Park, so we're actually going for a day trip.
Now, just driving out here to King City, we noticed the OPP on the 400, also on the 407. We are reaching out to them. Of course, they'll be looking for aggressive drivers, people not wearing their seatbelts, and they'll be warning people to take it easy as they head north this weekend. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. Some people heading out of the city, others in. And if you're traveling around by subway this weekend, there will be no service on Line 2 between Victoria Park and Kennedy stations. That area happens to be included in the TTC's updated map of reduced speed zones, which have been in place for the last few months. The transit agency says those stretches of subway track are in need of maintenance or updates, and trains run more slowly there as a safety measure.
And for the entire long weekend, including Monday, there will also be no GO train service on the Barrie line north of Maple Station. Trains will run to and from there from Union, with replacement buses then running all the way to Barrie Transit Terminal. And if you're heading to Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest, GO Transit is running its special Later Gosen line service tomorrow. It is billed as offering a warm Bavarian welcome and guides to and from the festivities. Tickets and details are listed at oktoberfest.ca. North of the city, first responders were called to a house explosion overnight in Oro-Medonte. These images were shared by fire officials who responded to a house fire on Line 3 around 12:30 a.m., where an explosion had leveled the property. 10 trucks and 30 firefighters helped battle the flames, a job that took several hours. So far, the Office of the Fire Marshal has sent investigators to the scene, but officials say the cause of the explosion does not appear suspicious and no injuries have been reported.
Toronto police are asking for the public's help in identifying a man they located yesterday in North York. Police say they found this man in the area of Sentinel Road and Grand Ravine Drive around 7 p.m. Thursday. He didn't have any identification and wasn't able to recall his name, where he lives, or any contact details for family or close acquaintances. Investigators are hoping someone can help connect him with his loved ones.
Toronto police have announced the details of their newest crime-fighting program. 5
tactical officers are being hired to patrol once the new police helicopter program gets off the ground. Our Mike Walker joins us live now from Downsview Airport, where the announcement was made today. Tell us more, Mike.
Well, Michelle, you may recall it was just a few months ago that the province announced it will be purchasing 5 new helicopters for police forces across the GTA, including Toronto and Ottawa. And today we got more information about exactly what this rollout is going to look like and what type of helicopter Toronto will be receiving. We'll show you some video of the right now of the OPP new Airbus H-135 helicopter. It touched down here at Downsview Airport this morning. Eventually, Toronto will have a helicopter helicopter exactly like this one dedicated to patrolling the city. In the interim, they're going to be relying on the OPP helicopter more often. Now, when Toronto does get its own dedicated helicopter, it will be owned and operated by the OPP, but there will be funding by the province for 5 Toronto police officers to be tactical flight officers on board those helicopters, assisting officers responding to calls on the ground and directing them where to go and where suspects may be. For example, the police chief spoke about how this will be a new dynamic tool that will help police respond quickly and effectively.
A helicopter will help us get even more guns and criminals who use them off our streets. A helicopter will help us apprehend those who are breaking into homes and stealing cars. A helicopter will help us find missing and vulnerable persons. In short, a helicopter will help us fight crime in our city and will save lives.
Now, Toronto Police and the OPP are still working out terms of what deployment will be and when exactly the helicopters will be utilized. The police chief also noted that he expects Toronto to have its own dedicated helicopter sometime between 12 and 18 months from now. The total price tag for the province for the purchase of these 5 new helicopters is $134 million. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. And we have breaking news to share with you this hour. Our helicopter is live over the scene where 2 people have been struck by a vehicle. One of the victims is a child, and the injuries are described as serious but not life-threatening. This incident occurred at Eglinton and Glen Cedar Road, which is just east of the Allen Expressway. So once again, we are over the scene of breaking news where a child has been seriously injured after being struck by a vehicle. Take note, Eglinton Avenue West is closed at Menin Road for this investigation. We're still in the early hours, so we'll continue to monitor it. You can see there that the area has been taped off. The investigation, no doubt, just getting underway. If we get some more information, we'll be sure to share it with you. Now, still ahead, the daunting cleanup as millions remain without power in Florida. The latest on the aftermath of Hurricane Milton a little later in the newscast.
More news in a moment, but first, to look outside at this hour. Sunny skies as we head into the long weekend. Looking pretty fabulous out there right now. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Jess.
It is all thanks to high pressure and a southwesterly wind, Natalie. As we wrap up the work and school week, we head into the long weekend. We're holding on to a daytime high again later on this afternoon into the 20s. So I guess if you like the warmer fall, enjoy it today because it changes heading into the weekend. But for now, it is fantastic outside. Wind direction really has a big role to play this time of year. It was northwesterly yesterday. You felt it. Southwesterly today. And it'll be breezy heading into the afternoon with gusts upwards of 40 kilometers an hour. As we make our way around the Golden Horseshoe, it's pretty warm right now. We're sitting at about 18, a little cooler up towards Bancroft, out towards Ottawa, but everybody warms up quite nicely as we head into that second half of our day. Over towards Pearson and through the islands, between about 17 and 18 degrees with that southwesterly wind already starting to pick up a little bit when you factor in the gusts. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, whether you're staying in the city, heading out of the city for the long weekend. We'll break it all down for you so you can plan ahead. But right now, I'll send things back over to Michelle and Natalie.
Thank you, Jess. Well, as we count down to the Maple Leafs home opener and the Raptors season start, Scotiabank Arena is revealing the results of extensive renovations.
MLSE's leadership says updating the venue is part of its goal to be a preeminent sports organization globally.
Scotiabank Arena first opened some 25 years ago. And in order for us to reach that vision, that goal of being the preeminent sports organization globally, you need to be best in class when it comes to stadium. And that is exactly what you will start to see today.
CTV's Sean Leathong is at Scotiabank Arena right now, getting a first-hand look at the changes made under the $350 million reimagination project. He will have all the details this evening on CTV News at 5 and 6 o'clock.
Toronto City Council has voted to keep its vacant property tax in place despite a botched rollout last year.
These are owners that have worked hard to pay for these properties. They pay their taxes, and now the government is telling them what to do with them.
Doing what we can to tell people you can't play monopoly in the city of Toronto, that people actually need homes, is a good thing.
Some 150,000 homeowners were wrongfully taxed after not realizing they had to inform the city their properties were indeed not vacant. Critics of the tax on council called for it to be scrapped altogether. Council instead voted to keep the tax in place with an overhaul, including better communication with residents.
Well, it has been nearly 3 years since 2 people were killed in a 5-vehicle crash near High Park.
Now the trial of the man accused of dangerous driving is underway.
It's been nearly 3 years since Valdemar and Fatima Avila were killed in a 5-vehicle crash near High Park. The trial now underway for Arthur Cotula, who is facing 2 counts each of dangerous driving causing death and bodily harm. This dashcam video played for the court captures the crash when Cotula's BMW slams into the back of the couple's vehicle on Parkside Drive. According to the agreed statement of facts, Cotula was driving southbound on Parkside Drive, which has a posted speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour. He approached the intersection at Spring Drive, where there was a row of vehicles stopped by backed up rush hour traffic from Lakeshore Boulevard. The agreed facts state he moved into the curb lane and hit the Avila's Toyota Matrix, which caused a chain reaction crash. Cotula's BMW then mounted the curb and collided with a hydro pole. Body camera footage from a responding officer was also played for the court. It shows the aftermath of the multi-vehicle crash as first responders tend to the victims. Investigators concluded the BMW was traveling between 117 to 101 kilometers per hour when it struck the rear of the Toyota. Valdemar was pronounced dead at the scene. Fatima died from her injuries the same day in hospital. The agreed facts also state Cotula's driver's license was suspended for medical reasons in March of 2020, but was reinstated in January of 2021. The trial continues today.
There was some notable growth in Canada's job market last month. Statistics Canada says the economy added 47,000 jobs in September, and the unemployment rate declined for the first time since January to 6.5%. The agency says youth and women aged 25 to 54 drove employment gains last month, while full-time employment saw its largest gain since May 2022. The overall job gains followed 4 consecutive months of little change as economists watch for the impact of interest rate cuts. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responding today to the announcement from Donald Trump that he will renegotiate the North American Free Trade Agreement if he wins the presidential election.
CTV's Judy Trin has more from the CN meeting in Laos, where Trudeau was trying to drum up more business for Canadian companies.
Trade with the 10 nations that belong to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, is a priority for the Prime Minister. Today, Justin Trudeau promoted doing business with Canada to entrepreneurs from countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Trade with ASEAN is valued at more than $38 billion a year. Increasing trade with the region is vital to Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy of reducing its reliance on China. Canada is currently negotiating a free trade deal with the ASEAN bloc and expects to have one in place by next year. Today, Trudeau also announced $128 million in initiatives to deepen Canadian ties in the region. It includes money for climate change, such as measures to promote sustainable development along the Mekong River. Funding to fight human and drug trafficking is also included. Canada is also increasing its diplomatic presence by opening full embassies in Cambodia and Laos. But a much bigger trade issue is looming closer to home. Republican candidate and former President Donald Trump, in his bid to return to the White House, has vowed to renegotiate the U.S. free trade agreement with Canada and Mexico to better protect the American auto industry.
I'm announcing today that upon taking office, I will formally notify Mexico and Canada of my intention to invoke the 6-year renegotiation provisions of the USMCA that I put in.
We did it by standing up for Canadian jobs, for demonstrating how integrated, in the case of the United States, our economies already are, and we are ready to do it again if necessary.
Democratic candidate Vice President Kamala Harris has also said she will renegotiate the agreement, but for different reasons. Harris wants stronger measures to deal with climate change. Canada does more than $900 billion of trade with the U.S. annually. To put that into perspective, that's more than 20 times bigger than the amount of trade it does with Southeast Asia. Judy Trin, CTV News, Vientiane, Laos.
At least 16 people are dead and millions remain without power in Florida after Hurricane Milton tore across the state. The storm filled streets with mud, spawned deadly tornadoes, flooded barrier islands, and tore the roof off a baseball stadium. Despite the destruction, many residents there are relieved that the storm wasn't worse. The hurricane did not directly hit Tampa, and the lethal storm surge scientists predicted never materialized. Florida's vital tourism industry is beginning to return to normal today, with Disney World, Universal Orlando, and SeaWorld planning to reopen. CTV's Scott Hurst is standing by with the latest on this. Scott, what is the newest information out of the aftermath of Hurricane Milton?
Good afternoon, Natalie. We've heard a lot about how this storm could have been much worse, and while it does appear to be true, when we look back at some of the original projections on the storm surge, of course, that is cold comfort for the many Floridians who've lost their homes, lost their livelihoods, even lost their business. As we're looking at the video that is coming out of Florida, the damage is significant, it is extensive, and it is widespread. Homes flooded or ripped off their foundations, boats violently tossed from the shore. As you mentioned, at least 16 people are now confirmed dead. The state is expecting that number to grow. First responders in the meantime have rescued more than 1,000 people, and at this time, just under 2.5 million people remain without power. So Floridians now are scrambling to pick up the pieces. The Sarasota-Bradenton Airport will remain closed today. However, the Tampa Airport is reopening. The Orlando Airport, the state's busiest, is also resuming flight operations today. Unfortunately, in the short term, when it comes to cleanup effort, the forecast in the Tampa area will remain mostly sunny and dry for the week ahead, so that is good news for storm-weary residents. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau even commented on the situation in Florida and Canadians that are there and Canadians that are chipping in to help out. Here's what he had to say.
I've also seen the devastating images from the ground in the U.S. after Hurricane Milton made landfall yesterday. My heart goes out to everyone affected by this tragic disaster. I know Canadians are already rolling up their sleeves, some there to restore power, others there to help neighbors in need. We are all thinking of our friends to the south.
So, Natalie, in the wake of the storm, obviously we've been reporting on the damage and the death toll rising, but now Floridians getting back to their communities, assessing the damage. This will take days, weeks, months, potentially years for some people to recover from this storm.
Scott, just some incredible video there of the damage. When can Florida residents return home?
Natalie, for the most part, they are allowed to return to homes, return to their communities. However, there might be some local or regional restrictions in place, potentially some local road closures. With so much damage and debris from this storm, there could be down trees, down power poles. We've even seen video of a sinkhole that has cut off an entire community. And of course, power is still out, as I mentioned, to millions, and many homes have significant damage and may be unlivable for the time being. Also, as residents race back to assess the damage, they're finding getting gasoline continues to be a challenge, as many gas stations remain out of fuel. And of course, that is essential for the cleanup effort, not just to fuel your vehicle, but also to fuel generators as well. So the message to residents getting back to their homes, getting back to their communities, many are allowed to get back to their communities. Some of the barrier islands may still be off limits, but for the most part, most Floridians are allowed back to their communities. But the message is to take it slow and stay safe while you do try to assess the damage and begin the process, Natalie, of picking up the pieces.
Okay, thank you, Scott. CTV Scott Hurst on the latest of the aftermath of Hurricane Milton.
Thanks, Natalie.
The legislation central to the now defunct confidence and supply agreement between the Liberals and the NDP is now law. The Pharmacare bill passed in the Senate last night without changes, and the vote was quickly followed by royal assent.
There's going to be a day when Canadians look back and find it unimaginable that people who needed access to essential medication didn't have it. We're not there yet, but today is an absolutely essential step in that journey. The adoption in the Senate of the Pharmacare bill is an essential first step in making sure that every Canadian everywhere has access to the medication that they need.
The law allows the federal government to sign deals with provinces and territories to cover the cost of diabetes and birth control medications as part of the public health system. That will be the next step. This morning, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre insisted Pharmacare is not the answer.
We're not going to have a single payer system that bans you and union workers and countless other people from keeping the excellent private plans they already have. And Trudeau and the NDP, frankly, they risk, if you vote for them, you risk losing your drug plan and getting a badly run, extremely expensive, slow government plan to replace it. And I think that's a terrible idea.
Poilievre says there is only a tiny minority of people who are not already covered by social assistance or their workplace plan. He believes it would be best to identify those people who could then be provided help.
Defense Minister Bill Blair is facing questions about the length of time it took to sign off on a spy service warrant in 2021 today at the inquiry into foreign interference. The commission has heard that it took 54 days for the Canadian Security Intelligence Service warrant to be approved by Blair, who was then Public Safety Minister. Blair says he didn't learn of the warrant until it was put before him.
There is a certain amount of due diligence that would take place between the agency, CSIS, the Deputy Minister at Public Safety, and the Minister's office. But my involvement in these is when that work is completed and it's brought to my attention that they would like me to go to a secure location to review the document. My role in that application was not to provide any information or input on who or how or where or why, but rather my responsibility statutorily was to undertake my authority and to exercise my authority to approve the application going forward to a federal court judge.
Blair told the inquiry he only realized about the 54-day delay when the story was published in the media. The average turnaround time for such applications is generally between 4 and 10 days.
A third Canadian has reportedly died in Lebanon. Global Affairs says it is aware and it is in contact with the person's family to offer assistance. In September, 2 Canadians were killed in an Israeli airstrike there. Also, 2 peacekeepers were injured today after 2 explosions near a watchtower in southern Lebanon. The peacekeeping force says its main base in the same area was shaken by explosions for the second time in 48 hours. As Israeli forces battle Hezbollah. The United Nations interim force in Lebanon called the incidents a serious development. Israel says it is conducting a thorough review after being notified that 2 peacekeepers were inadvertently hurt in southern Lebanon.
The Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to the Japanese organization Nihon Hidenyanko.
This grassroots movement of atomic bomb survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, also known as Hibakusha, is receiving the Peace Prize for its efforts to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons.
The organization uses testimony from the witnesses to the only 2 nuclear weapons ever used in war as part of their fight for a nuclear-free world. The issue is one that the Nobel Committee has recognized before, and as recently as 2017, with it awarding the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons the Nobel Peace Prize.
As we get ready to wrap up the work and school week, we are holding on to a daytime high back kind of reminiscent of mid-September in the low 20s. A southwesterly wind gusty at times will help to warm things up, but it doesn't last very long. So if you can, get out and enjoy it. We're looking at a high late this afternoon around 21, 22 degrees. It takes a while to reach that daytime heating. Seasonally, we should be at 14. Heading into the weekend, we return to a much more standard fall forecast, but it comes with a chance of active weather. Coming up, your full forecast. That's right after the break.
Well, when you've got a long weekend in front of you, even if it's cloudy, there's just a sunny vibe in the air. But we have the sunshine to go along with it. It's gorgeous today, and there's more to come tomorrow.
It was feeling like fall this morning. I was noticing the leaves crunching on the sidewalk and just thinking, oh, it felt like such a good start to the Thanksgiving weekend.
And it really is. We have kind of this sweet spot today where we hit about 22 degrees this afternoon, and it's going to be so nice. If you like the warmer fall weather, we have that and then some, but it changes into the weekend, a much more standard fall forecast. But overall, as we step into what is going to be a busy travel weekend to start and to end, at least for today, it is nice if you're out on the roads. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. A beautiful start to the day. Again, we're holding on to a decent amount of sunshine as we get the rest of our day going and into the beginning of our weekend. It starts off really nicely, but you can see some of those leaves changing there. As Nat mentioned, we're getting into that time of year where it is feeling very fall-like. We're tiptoeing into spooky season. And then we're holding on to what is a fairly standard fall forecast, at least let's go into the start of your Saturday. Temperature-wise, it's not bad right now. We're sitting at about 18 here in the city, right across southern Ontario. It's quite mild thanks to a southwesterly wind. A bit different areas in central and northern portions of the province, but overall, everyone fairly dry as we step in towards our Friday and at least the start of your weekend. Into this afternoon, we'll sit around 22 degrees. The seasonal norm is 14, and we're holding on above seasonal right across the board in that low to kind of mid-20 range. Yes, we have a southwesterly wind, but there is not really a humidex to contend with, so it's kind of that real perfect in between when it comes to being warm but not too hot. Into this evening, we don't lose a lot of that warmth. We sit around 13 as we head right around midnight into the early morning hours tomorrow. Then there's a bit of a cool down before we average out in a pretty seasonal way. But everybody holding on relatively mild, with the exception of areas kind of Peterborough and east. As we head throughout the day, there's not much in the way of active weather for us here in southern Ontario. A bit of a low tracking its way through the north. For us, though, we hold on to high pressure as we step through the day today and kick off the beginning of our long weekend before a system stateside makes its way up, bringing some active weather. Throughout the rest of your afternoon, though, really is quite beautiful. A few light clouds into the early evening, but if you are commuting today, you're traveling north, south, east, west to visit family, at least condition-wise, it's quite nice out there. As we head in towards our Saturday morning, lots of sunshine. It is a little cooler. We return to a more northwesterly flow to the wind, so that will help kind of impact that just a little bit. Into your Saturday afternoon, some cloud cover rolls in. The rain starts out towards Windsor, kind of creeping in towards London area. And then for a good portion of southern Ontario, you start off your Sunday not all that bad. It's as we head into the late afternoon, early evening that you see a round of rain roll in for you. So that carries us through the end of our Sunday and into the beginning of your Thanksgiving Monday. But temperature-wise, again, today, fantastic if you like the warmer fall weather. Heading into the day tomorrow, right on par for seasonal, very fall-like as we kind of step into the beginning of the weekend. Again, Sunday, it's not a wash of a day. You do have some sunshine in the morning. That rain and the cooler weather comes into the late afternoon, and then we hold on to that through our Monday and Tuesday with just 9 degrees for the high. So a bit of a below seasonal start to the week ahead. But getting in towards the middle and end of next week, we got sunshine, seasonal weather, fantastic for spending some time outside. Natalie, Michelle, I'll send things back over to you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks.
The Toronto Maple Leafs were looking for their first win and goal of the season as they took on the New Jersey Devils last night.
It picks it free again. Drops it back to Timothy. Trying to stick. Marks from Sprawls. But Pacioretty scores.
That goal came early in the game with new Leaf forward Max Pacioretty scoring in the first period. The Leafs added 2 more in the frame and went on to win 4-2. The Leafs were facing their former bench boss, Sheldon Keefe, for the first time. He became the new head coach of the Devils in the offseason. The Leafs will take on the Pittsburgh Penguins in their home opener tomorrow night.
And Mayor Olivia Chow raised the Maple Leafs flag at City Hall this morning to celebrate the team's home opener.
We raise the flag. We also raise our hope. Once again, we celebrate not just the start of another Leafs campaign, but the shared spirit of grit and determination.
The mayor was joined at the flag raising by Maple Leafs alumnus Wendell Clark and the team mascot. There he is, Carlton the Bear. And as anticipation builds for the big game Saturday night in the city, we're joined by Leafs legend Daryl Sittler. Daryl, thank you for joining us. I was thinking, who better to chat about the Leafs than someone whose number 27 is up there in the rafters? How are you feeling about this season?
Well, thanks, Michelle. I feel good. I mean, we made some changes. I think we got a little bit more toughness on defense, a little bit more experience. Obviously, it's been disappointing for all of us the last couple of years, but we know that. We've got a new coach with a little different mentality. I think he's getting the guys in shape. Unfortunately, we lost that first game in Montreal. It was one of those nights the puck didn't have eyes, couldn't get into the net. But then the next night, like last night in New Jersey, we scored 2 in the first 6 shots. So you never know. We got a good team. We've always had a good team, a good nucleus, and we just got to get ready. It's a long season, stay healthy, and then get some great goaltending when you have to in the playoffs. So I'm excited about it, as I'm sure most Leaf fans are.
The fans are always. Hope springs eternal. So, yeah, we've got those 2 games in the bag now to give us a sample of what could be to come in the regular season. What are your big takeaways? What have you noticed with this team?
Well, last night the scoring came from the kind of the 3rd and 4th line guys. Most nights it's from Mitch and Nylander and obviously Austin Matthews, who's always had a great season. So if you have a little bit more depth and you play 4 lines, I think over the course of the season that gives you a little bit more strength and stability as a team. But we're in a tough division. I mean, it's not like Ottawa and Buffalo who are behind us. Detroit, they're fighting to make the playoff spot. So we can't take anything for granted. We just take one day at a time, one game at a time, and try to make ourselves better. And that's what the coaches do.
And there are some tweaks, as you said. We've got new coach Craig Berube. What do you make so far of his approach and guidance?
Well, I haven't been around the training camp much, but just from reading about him and knowing past players who played for him, he's a fair, honest guy. He demands a hard, strong work ethic. Obviously he believes in, like I said earlier, 4 lines and everybody contributing. He's had success in St. Louis, and when you've won a cup and you've been there and now you're here in Toronto, I think he like any coach coming in here, realizes what's ahead of them, so to speak, because there's lots of naysayers, and each one of them that come here want to turn the thing around and be successful and bring that cup back to Toronto. We all know it's been way too long. But I think he has the potential to do that.
It's been so long. You know what it's like to wear the C. Austin Matthews doing so now. How can that make a difference?
Well, Austin, he's a consistent player. He's grown, obviously, as a person, as we all do. He's been in the league 9 years. I've always liked Johnny Tavares and his temperament, and both on and off the ice as a player. And he very gracefully turned the C over, knowing that, hey, the bigger picture is for all of us to hopefully be here to see a Stanley Cup team. And when I was the captain of the team, no different than now, you need a nucleus of great leaders around you. And I think we've put those in place for Austin, and he's just going to go out there and be Austin. I mean, I remember when I was named captain, I said, just be Daryl Sittler, who you are. Don't try to change anything, make it any bigger or any littler than it is, and go play your game and lead by example, so to speak. So I'm sure Austin will do that, and hopefully we'll have some success with that.
Hopefully. Hockey Hall of Famer Daryl Sittler. Any predictions for tomorrow night against Pittsburgh?
Well, it's always fun. Sidney Crosby's been one of my favorite players to watch, and he's done so much for Canada. We saw when they won the gold medal there, and he's coming into town. He's always, like I say, fun to watch. Pittsburgh's had their success, and home opener is always exciting. A new lineup, a new team. Scotiabank Arena will be lit up. Obviously, Maple Leaf Square out front. There'll be a whole pile of fans in there cheering us on, and I know they've done a number of renovations within the building to make it more fan-friendly, so I'm excited to see that. I haven't been down there this year yet, but I'm sure the fans are excited to see it too. So it's all fun and games. It's the first one at home, and hopefully we have lots of success.
Hopefully you got us excited. Mr. Sittler, thank you so much for your time today. Have a great Thanksgiving long weekend.
Yeah, Thanksgiving to everybody out there too. Happy Thanksgiving.
Take care.
Still ahead on CTV News, as many families look forward to Thanksgiving meals this weekend, a Toronto food bank is making an urgent plea for donations. The details after the break.
A Toronto food bank is making an urgent appeal for donations ahead of Thanksgiving. North York Harvest says they've run out of many essential items, and with food insecurity at an all-time high, the food bank is seeing a record number of visitors. It's asking for donations of food and money to make sure it can keep up with the unprecedented demand.
What we're seeing right now is that the demand for food bank services, and that is true in North York, that's true across Toronto, and I think that's true all across Ontario, is outpacing our ability, both as an organization, but also as a network of smaller agencies, to be able to service that demand. So we're, in need of support from our community, so that we can keep pace with what is ultimately a much broader and much more complex problem.
The food bank says 1 in 10 Torontonians are now relying on food banks, which works out to roughly 1 million people in Ontario. Canned meat and fish, beans and lentils, and ready-to-eat meals are some of the most urgently needed items.
Well, the very first Bell Let's Talk Day back in 2010 was aimed at removing the stigma of mental illness by making it a topic of regular conversation.
A lot has changed since then, but as CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan tells us, some areas are slower to improve than even the experts anticipated.
A new report released on World Mental Health Day by Mental Health Research Canada takes a comprehensive look at our youth. And while most are comfortable talking about mental health in general, stigma is still strong when it comes to revealing personal experiences.
When it's your own mental health, people are not comfortable with it. There's a lot of bullying and name calling, and even someone who does want to get the help, they see others being bullied or they hear things being said.
16-year-old Kirsten Devereaux told the audience gathered at Toronto Metropolitan University that she had experienced it herself. Another surprising finding, says lead author Michael Cooper, is that this decline in youth mental health could be spotted as early as 2015, long before the pandemic. The report also looks at suicide, which is the second leading cause of death in young people.
8% of people had planned suicide, which is a staggering number. That means about 1 in 10 youth are considering and actively making a plan for suicide in the past year.
Isaiah Neal spoke of his suicide attempt while in university.
I come from 14 years of playing the game of football, and you quickly learn that the status quo is shove your emotions down and don't talk about it.
He sought help initially from his coaches, who fortunately were supportive.
I'm an athlete for only a couple hours a day. The rest of the day, I'm a human being, and it's okay to feel those emotions. It's okay to talk about those emotions, and that's where I really found that balance.
The youth panel also spoke about solutions, highlighting education, especially of teachers and others in daily contact with young people, as a way to build understanding.
It's time to uplift and empower our next generation.
And Bell Let's Talk Chair Mary Deacon spoke of her own two brothers who died by suicide.
The work that's being done and the ability for young people to both connect in with those organizations, but to speak their truth and have their voices heard. I wonder, if my brothers would still be here with me today.
The next Bell Let's Talk Day will be on January 22nd, and it will feature a campaign to support 6 youth mental health providers. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Still to come on CTV News at noon. If you're looking for love, you'll want to watch out for the latest romance scam. We'll have the details after this short break.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
One of Canada's biggest banks has pleaded guilty in a major money laundering case in the U.S. tied to drug traffickers.
Toronto Dominion Bank has agreed to pay a multi-billion-dollar record fine. CTV's Adrian Gobriel has more on the financial fallout.
A fiscal fiasco on the international stage.
TD Bank created an environment that allowed financial crime to flourish.
Hit with a record $3 billion fine, Toronto Dominion Bank pled guilty to multiple charges, including conspiracy to violate the Bank Secrecy Act and commit money laundering.
By making its services convenient for criminals, it became one.
Over a 6-year period, the U.S. Attorney General says TD Bank failed to monitor $18.3 trillion in customer activity, allowing 3 money laundering networks to transfer more than $670 million through accounts in the United States. In one instance, a group of TD Bank employees are alleged to have collected more than $57,000 in gift cards from drug cartels, eager to have their criminal cash cleaned.
They're employing new and more complex techniques to circumvent the controls of financial institutions.
As part of the significant settlement, TD Bank will also have its growth restricted in the United States.
That will severely affect its bottom line, right, for the years to come, considering it was one of their growth strategies.
In a statement, TD Bank's outgoing CEO said, in part, "We have taken full responsibility for the failures of our U.S. anti-money laundering program and are making the investments, changes, and enhancements required to deliver on our commitments. This is a difficult chapter in our bank's history."
You need to have implemented concrete, sophisticated transaction monitoring.
The Canadian-based bank isn't expected to have any issues paying the fine. As for TD's 15 million clients in Canada, financial experts say they have little to worry about.
TD is now the first bank in U.S. history to plead guilty to money laundering. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News.
Romance scams are among the top 3 frauds in Canada, with Canadians losing more than $52 million to criminals last year alone.
Many scammers use social media to try and find lonely victims and before long start asking them for money. Pat Foran has this consumer alert.
Late July, we were contacted by a relative who said that our mother had been scammed.
Identical twins Pauline and Paula Harnham of Woodbridge traveled to Newfoundland to be with their mother Elaine after finding out she had been caught in a romance scam. The sisters say their father recently died and their mother was being treated for cancer.
We believe that what's happened is that my mother has been caught at a vulnerable time And, the scammers can be pretty convincing.
Elaine says she was on Facebook one day when a man sent her a friend request.
He fell in love with me when he seen my picture.
The man said he was also a widow and was her age, and before long he was texting her day and night.
He seemed so nice and he wanted to come here to meet me.
But then he said his finances were tied up in a U.S. bank and he asked if he could borrow money to help his sick son. He asked Elaine to purchase Apple gift cards.
$50, $100, and then it went up to, 200 and 500, and it went up so high as 3,000.
In the end, Elaine gave the scammer $20,000.
There's so many older adults that may be living alone who are looking for some companionship.
Groups working to prevent seniors from being scammed say they're trying to teach them to be cyber savvy.
If you didn't initiate the conversation initially with someone that then be very, very careful about who you are connecting with online and what you're sharing publicly on Facebook.
The Harnhams say retailers need to do more to prevent fraud when they see seniors buying large amounts of gift cards.
If you see somebody coming in and they're buying thousands of dollars worth of gift cards at the corner store, there should be an alert system, and they should have some responsibility as well.
They also say websites like Facebook should be more accountable to scams taking place on their platform. Pat Foran, CTV News.
Coming up on CTV News, a movie about Donald Trump that the former U.S. president tried to ban hits theaters today. Andrea Case talks to one of the stars of the controversial film after this short break. Even before seeing it, Donald Trump dismissed the new film, The Apprentice, as pure fiction. The filmmakers acknowledge some events have been fictionalized for dramatic effect.
But now people can judge for themselves. With the film officially in theaters, CTV's Andrea Case spoke to one of the stars.
You have to be willing to do anything to anyone to win.
The film, The Apprentice, which premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in May, left without a distribution deal. It took some time and a threatened lawsuit in an attempt to stop its release, but it was finally picked up in September. It tells a fictionalized version of the rise of Donald Trump, played by Sebastian Stan in the 1970s. In this film, Trump is the apprentice in a mentor-protege story that charts the origins of his relationship with lawyer and fixer Roy Cohn. In that role, Jeremy Strong. Maria Bakalova plays Ivana Trump.
When you think about her, you don't really know her life story, you don't know her journey, but you get to understand that she's been somebody that's been way much ahead of her time, outspoken and bold. And when you think about women back in the 70s, 80s, especially Eastern Europeans, especially people that haven't been born here, you don't imagine that they will be so brave, and she's been like that. Of course, there are good things and bad things, and you can always find things that you can criticize about a human being. But I think she's been an interesting person.
Go find someone else. I'm not a trophy wife.
You're gonna ruin your life if you don't marry me.
Why?
1 second, listen,
Why is that?
Because I'm rich, I'm handsome, I have a great family, I'm gonna be in the #1 building in New York. Listen to me. You're gonna have the life you can't even dream of, Ivana. With me. I love you. I love you.
Bakalova received an Oscar nomination for her daring role in 2020's Borat's subsequent movie film. And in this film, too, there were some challenging scenes. Director Ali Abbasi conducted an extensive audition process involving many auditions.
He's daring to do things that people usually get scared to do. So I did a meeting, then I did a self-tape, then I did another self-tape and another self-tape, and maybe after 4 months, I got the call and I was over the moon.
While many people have formed their own thoughts on The Apprentice without seeing it, the Bulgarian actress says people should see the movie first and judge it for themselves.
People should come and see The Apprentice because this movie is much larger than just a story about these people. The characters are somehow like a representation about the American system. And we all know this idea of the American dream, but what are you willing to sacrifice in order to achieve your dreams, in order to succeed with this desire of power and manipulation, and how far can you actually go? So I think I look at it as a dive into the underbelly of the American system in general and power dynamics.
The Apprentice is in theaters now. Andrea Case, CTV News.
Well, I think if you were going to go to a movie theater, maybe the back half of the long weekend would be better to be inside.
I think so. I mean, today is gorgeous. We'll be in the 20s again. It's that reminiscent of, like, you know, just that end of summer feeling. Into the day tomorrow, very seasonal. But you're right. As we head in towards our Sunday, our Monday, it's a little unsettled. So probably a good idea to stay in and catch a movie. Now, right now, we're holding on to a lot of high pressure, keeping us nice and clear here in southern Ontario. A bit of a low making its way through central portions of the province, but it won't last too long. Now, we're comfortable sitting at 18 here in the city. We're at 19 in Niagara, 18 in Windsor, also sitting at about 13 through Ottawa. So everybody kind of in that mid to upper teen range before we hit the 20s as we head in towards this afternoon. Getting into our weekend, kicking things off, again, very sunny, very seasonal, a light northwesterly wind carrying us through our Saturday, a little unsettled into the second half of our Sunday, but overall, for a long weekend as we head in towards that midpoint of October, it's not so bad.
All right, and that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and on our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Natalie Johnson. Be sure to join us for CTV News at 5 and 6. See you then.